Chequers, Buckinghamshire. Saturday evening, the 30th of May, 1942. The dining room of the Prime Minister's country retreat is warm and unhurried. At the table, Winston Churchill. Across from him, General Henry Arnold, Hap Arnold, commander of the American Air Forces currently assembling in England, and between them, doing most of the talking, Air Chief Marshal Arthur Harris. Heavy-set, square-faced, red-haired, the peak of his service dress cap pulled low. He's making an argument. He's been making it, in one form or another, for months. Strategic bombing. Germany's cities, not raids, not limited operations. Destruction, concentrated, sustained, unprecedented in weight. The war won from the air, without another generation of British soldiers dying in the mud of a European land campaign. The men at the table listen. And at this moment, across England, Harris's argument is about to stop being theoretical. On airfields from Yorkshire to Lincolnshire, the briefing rooms are filling. Wooden chairs, cigarette smoke, the curtained maps at the front of each room. Squadron leaders facing their crews, a hand reaching for the blue curtain. The moment before it moves, the curtain is pulled. The map reveals Cologne. A collective sigh moves through a briefing room in Driffield. Cologne. It's close, 2, maybe 3 hours of flying. Less time to be shot down. Then the next announcement lands. It will be a big one. We intend to send over 1,000 bombers. No air raid on this scale had ever been conceived before. The question sitting in the air of that briefing room is not whether the raid will work. And it is how a man who was eating dinner in Buckinghamshire ended up sending 1,000 aircraft to Germany tonight, including men who haven't finished their training, and why he decided that the number mattered more than anything else. By February of 1942, RAF Bomber Command was fighting a war on 2 fronts, and the more dangerous one wasn't Germany. The Butt report had landed the previous year with the force of a verdict. A government-commissioned analysis of RAF bombing operations had produced a number that the optimists had managed to avoid saying plainly. Of the crews who claimed to have hit their targets, only 1/3 had come within 5 miles of the aiming point. 5 miles. Bomber Command was burning through men, aircraft, and fuel at enormous cost, and reaching almost nothing. The admirals saw this and wanted the planes for Atlantic convoy protection. The Army generals argued the aircraft were wasted on cities. Politicians who had staked reputations on the bombing campaign were getting nervous. Into this walked Arthur Travers Harris. He had been born in Gloucestershire in 1892, emigrated to Rhodesia at 17, fought in Southwest Africa before the Great War, then returned to England and learned to fly. He commanded No. 45 Squadron over the Western Front in 1917, claimed 5 enemy aircraft. He came home with the certainty that the thing the world called the Great War was the worst catastrophe that civilized men had ever inflicted on themselves. The trenches had formed him, not softened him, formed him. For the rest of the war, every decision would be balanced against the arithmetic of the Western Front. Bombed cities weighed against Belgian mud, against 1 million British dead. Between the wars, he had run bombing campaigns across Mesopotamia, improvising bomb racks from transport aircraft in the desert, cutting holes in fuselages with whatever tools came to hand. He was the kind of officer who solved problems by going further than anyone expected. He arrived at Bomber Command in February 1942, replacing a commander who had already been judged to have failed. What he inherited was a command under siege, fewer than 400 frontline aircraft, mounting losses, and a political argument that was going badly. He did not dispute the Butt report. His response to it was not to improve accuracy. It was to conclude that accuracy was less important than scale. Send enough aircraft, and the mathematics would change. What he needed was a demonstration, not another modest raid. A blow that no one in Whitehall could explain away. The plan was simple. 1,000 bombers on a single night against a single city. The number 1,000 had been chosen before a target was selected, before routes were drawn, before a single aircraft was assigned. It was a propaganda figure. Harris understood this clearly and never pretended otherwise. What 1,000 did was dominate headlines in a way that 400 could not. It made an argument that a column of statistics could never make. If a single night could put 1,000 aircraft over Germany, then the men calling for Bomber Command to be broken up were going to have to explain themselves very loudly. The problem was arithmetic. 400 frontline aircraft, and he needed 1,000. Harris's deputy, Air Marshal Sir Robert Saundby, methodical, quieter than his chief, almost entirely forgotten in the accounts that survive, began assembling the machine. Operational training units were stripped of every aircraft that could fly a combat mission. Instructors were pulled from rest tours and handed back their operational assignments. Pupil pilots in the later stages of their courses, not yet fully trained, were included in the count. Every effort was made to give student crews at least an experienced pilot. For 49 aircraft, this was impossible. 49 would fly to Germany that night with pupil pilots at the controls. Harris had done the calculation. If losses exceeded 10%, he would have stripped Bomber Command's instructor cadre and crippled training for the next 2 years. So the force he was building would eat itself. He knew this. He found 49 more planes anyway. Then, 3 days before the raid, the Royal Navy intervened. The Admiralty refused to release Coastal Command's aircraft. 250 aircraft, gone. The propaganda justification, they said, was insufficient against the real and pressing danger of the U-boats. Harris faced a shortfall that, on paper, killed the plan. His response was immediate. Back to the OTUS. 49 more aircraft scraped together. The number landed at 1,047. He did not scale back. He did not reconsider. He moved faster. His original target had been Hamburg, but weather over the Baltic coast moved the decision, and his scientists told him that Cologne was within reliable range of the new GEE navigation system. Cologne. Hamburg would survive another year, until Operation Gomorrah in 1943. Everything about to happen to a city of 700,000 people had been intended for a different city. A cloud formation over the North Sea decided which one burned first. Before the aircraft lifted off, Harris sat with Churchill at checkers. Churchill asked how many he expected to lose. Harris answered, "Say 50 aircraft and crews." Churchill replied that he would be prepared for 100. 2 men at a dinner table, treating a probable body count as an opening bid in a negotiation. Across England, in station after station, the curtain is swept aside, and the red-taped route runs east across the North Sea. Tom Daly, a wireless operator with number 158 Squadron at Driffield, hears the target named and feels the room relax. Cologne is close, survivable, and then hears the second announcement and feels it tighten again. Before they walk out to their aircraft, the usual banter finds its way back. "Can I have your bacon and eggs if you don't come back?" Harris's message is read aloud at every station. The force assembled tonight is twice the size and 4 times the carrying capacity of any air force ever before concentrated on one objective. Press home the attack with determination. Let him have it, right on the chin. At RAF Skellingthorpe, Lincolnshire, a 20-year-old flying officer named Leslie Manser is walking to his aircraft. His full name is Leslie Thomas Manser. Born in New Delhi, schooled in Darjeeling and then Hertfordshire, accepted by the Royal Air Force in August 1940, promoted to flying officer just 3 weeks ago. He has 5 operational sorties behind him. His aircraft tonight is Avro Manchester L7301, coded D for dog, number 50 Squadron. The Manchester is already obsolete. Its Rolls-Royce Vulture engines are chronically unreliable. The aircraft is being phased out of frontline service, replaced by the Lancaster, and would be gone already had the numbers not required it tonight. This particular aircraft is missing its mid-upper turret. If night fighters attack from above, the crew's defense is 2 gas-operated Vickers machine guns, which they are supposed to poke through holes cut in the fuselage. Manser is in this aircraft because Harris needed 49 more planes. He is in this aircraft because the Admiralty refused a request 3 days ago. He takes off at 23:01. What Harris has built is not simply a large raid. It is a tactical system. You assume each element of it has been designed with a specific problem to solve. Germany's night defense network, the Kammhuber Line, stretches in a belt across northwest Europe, a chain of radar stations paired with night fighter boxes, each box controlled by a ground station that vectors fighters onto individual bombers. Each box can handle, at most, 6 interceptions per hour. Harris's planners have done the arithmetic. Compress 1,000 aircraft into 90 minutes, and the rate through each box is not 6 per hour. It is 60 per minute. The Kammhuber Line is not overpowered. It is mathematically broken. The system ceases to function not because it is destroyed, but because it cannot process what is happening to it. The GEE-equipped aircraft, fitted with the new radio navigation system, go in first, drop flares, to mark the approach and the target for those behind. The Rhine provides its own orientation, the great westward bend of the river, unmistakable from altitude in moonlight, identifiable from 100 miles out. The first waves cross into the defended zone before the boxes are overwhelmed. Those behind them will find something different waiting. The bomb loads follow a 2-stage logic. Cookie bombs, massive blast weapons, punch through roofs, collapse floors, open buildings to the air. Incendiaries follow, raining into the exposed interiors, catching the debris alight. Blast open the structure, then burn what's inside. Harris's operation order closes with a warning. Follow your briefed timings and course exactly, because the same geometry that defeats the Kammhuber Line also places 1,000 aircraft in a corridor at night. And any deviation from the briefed track is a collision risk. If you don't, this raid, instead of being the costliest in history for the enemy, could be the costliest in history for us. He is telling his crews, without euphemism, that they can kill each other tonight if they fly carelessly. 2 aircraft, in fact, will. The stream crosses the North Sea in the dark. The Dutch coast passes beneath them. The radar contacts multiply. The Kammhuber boxes fill. The controllers work their vectors. 4 aircraft fall to night fighters, all night. 4 out of 1,000. The most sophisticated air defense network ever built against bombers watches most of them pass through untouched. The Rhine appears in the moonlight. Gordon Meller's navigator reports the reflection on the river, on the great bend to the south confirming their position and timing. The approach down the Rhine Valley, Cologne ahead. The first bombs fall at 12:47 in the morning of the 31st of May. The pathfinders have marked the city. The fires start, and as they grow, they become their own navigation aid. The glow becomes visible from 150 miles out. Incoming crews don't need their instruments. They follow the light. On this same evening, in his headquarters to the east, Adolf Hitler had dismissed the RAF as little threat to the Third Reich. By the time the fires over Cologne are visible from the Dutch coast, a city of 700,000 people is becoming an inferno. The Germans try a countermeasure. Decoy fires lit on the outskirts, intended to draw the trailing bombers away from the center. It doesn't work. The bombers keep coming. 150 searchlight beams sweep the sky. The 88mm flak guns work through their ammunition, and still the bombers come. 1 every 6 seconds. Relentless. A Halifax pilot somewhere in the stream looks down and reaches for a language. It was almost too gigantic to be real. Below the main stream, Manchester L7301 is in trouble. Caught by searchlights at 7,000 feet on the approach to the target, Manser holds his course through the anti-aircraft fire. He bombs Cologne. He turns for home. The damage is done. The Manchester has been hit repeatedly. The rear gunner is wounded. The front cabin is filling with smoke. The port engine is running hot, close to its limit. He takes the aircraft up to 2,000 feet. The port engine bursts into flames. He holds it. 10 minutes with a burning engine, keeping the aircraft level. After 10 minutes, the fire is mastered, and the engine is dead. Part of the wing has burned. On one engine, at low altitude, the aircraft is descending. Slowly, steadily. The aircraft crosses the Belgian border. Manser orders his crew to bail out. He is offered a parachute. He refuses it. He holds the aircraft level, or as level as a burning machine on one dead engine will hold, while his crew moves to the hatches. Sergeant Bavistock, Pilot Officer Horsley, Sergeant King, Sergeant Mills, Sergeant Naylor. 5 men who will, by different routes, find their way back to Britain. A 6th, Pilot Officer Barnes, will be taken prisoner. Manser stays at the controls. The Manchester descends. The 5 men dropping through the Belgian night watch it go. Avro Manchester L 7301 crashes into a dike at Brie, in Belgium, 13 miles northeast of Genk. Leslie Thomas Manser was 20 years old. He had been alive for 20 years and 19 days. The testimony of the 5 men who survived him was enough for the London Gazette. His Victoria Cross citation found, in the end, only plain words for what he had done. In pressing home his attack in the face of strong opposition, in striving against heavy odds to bring back his aircraft and crew, and, finally, when in extreme peril, thinking only of the safety of his comrades, Flying Officer Manser displayed determination and valor of the highest order. There is a grave in Heavily War Cemetery, in Leuven, Belgium. He is there because Harris needed 49 more aircraft. He is there because the Admiralty said no. He is there because the number had to be 1,000. But the reckoning comes with the daylight. 2,500 separate fires. Of those, the German Fire Brigade classifies 1,700 as large. 13,000 buildings destroyed. The German authorities begin the count of what was lost, and the list is specific and long. 7 official administration buildings, 14 public buildings, 9 hospitals, 16 schools, 4 university buildings, 17 churches, some of them standing since before the Normans crossed to England, standing for 700 years, some for 1,000. At the end of the list, without elaboration, the only military installation to sustain damage was the Flak Barracks. The Flak Barracks received damage. The churches are gone. The stated primary objective, Cologne's chemical and machine tool industries, was disrupted. Thus, within a month, the factories had recovered their productivity. A month. The factories took a month. 469 people were killed on the ground. Over 5,000 injured. 45,000 bombed from their homes. In the weeks that followed, between 135,000 and 150,000 of Cologne's 700,000 residents left the city, a fifth of its population, walking out into the Rhine Valley with what they could carry. The RAF lost 41 aircraft, approximately 3.9% of the force. The distribution of those losses contains the final, quiet irony of the night. The highest casualties fell on the experienced crews who flew in the first waves before the defenses were overwhelmed. The student pilots, the men Harris had scraped from the training units, and the men most endangered by his decision, came through behind them into a city whose defenses were already saturated, already failing. The men Harris had most put at risk were, by the mechanics of his own tactical innovation, among the most protected. The gamble had worked in a way he could not have fully anticipated. Churchill's endorsement was immediate. The raid captured imaginations on both sides of the Atlantic. Bomber Command would not be broken up. The strategic bombing offensive had its mandate. And soon its American partners, as the B-17s of General Eaker's 8th Air Force, moved into their English bases. Harris had walked into a command fighting for its existence and, in 90 minutes over a German city, secured its future for the rest of the war. He said so plainly, and as was his habit, the success of the Thousand Plan had proved beyond doubt that Bomber Command could dispose of a weight of attack which no country could survive. He had won. Every element of what he had built on the night of the 30th of May, the bomber stream, the 90-minute window, the GEE-equipped pathfinders going in first, became the template for everything that followed. Operation Gomorrah over Hamburg, 1943. The winter raids on Berlin. Dresden in February of 1945. The fingerprints of this night are on all of it. What worked over Cologne worked everywhere the tactic was applied, and it was applied for 3 more years, until there were very few cities left to apply it to. In 1975, at the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, Marshal of the Royal Air Force Sir Arthur Harris, 83 years old, on straight-backed, addressed a room of young cadets. He told them that had Great Britain lost the war, the Germans would have tried him as a war criminal. In 1992, a statue of Harris was unveiled in London. The mayors of bombed cities wrote letters of protest. The veterans of Bomber Command, who had gone without official recognition for half a century, said it was long overdue. In photographs taken over Cologne in 1945, the city is rubble. Block after block, district after district. 2,000 years of continuous habitation reduced to brick and open sky. Except for 2 things. The twin Gothic spires of Cologne Cathedral, 157 feet tall, visible above the ruins for miles. They survived the raid. They guided RAF bombers to their targets for 3 more years. The cathedral stood because it was too tall, too distinctive, and too useful to destroy. A navigation landmark that every crew on every subsequent raid could use to find the aiming point. It was spared, in some sense, by its own usefulness to the men bombing everything around it. There is a grave in Heverlee War Cemetery in Leuven, Belgium. The stone reads, Flying Officer Leslie Thomas Manser, VC No. 50 Squadron, Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve, 11th of May, 1922, 31st of May, 1942. Age 20.